Twitter, you either love it or you hate it, but what do you think about it? Hello Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers, this is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com. I've been using Twitter since I first began putting out YouTube videos, roughly around the same time I created a Twitter account then, and it's been very useful to me for also growing an audience in that social media platform. But I also really didn't quite get how it works in the sense of how to really make it work for you in a good way. I've slowly built up a following on there, but only just in the last few weeks or even a month or two, couple months, I've really put in the effort to really figure out some key concepts around it and some of the extra bits that I'm going to go over in this video. And you might be thinking, why is Zach doing this like social media thing on his longevity YouTube channel? Well, I use Twitter actually quite a bit for research. I've got a number of people I follow on there that are constantly posting stuff. I mean, anyone on there is constantly posting stuff, but you can find people in different niches, and the way you can organize it on Twitter is very useful for data mining. And I'd encourage anyone to join just for that reason alone, even if you're not trying to promote yourself as a personal brand or as a company brand or as a celebrity or anything like that. So that's kind of the major three things you find on Twitter: is celebrities, companies, and then people who are either just on there for themselves or personal branding. So they're like a blogger who just talks about their life in some way. So it's just their name that they're promoting. But just like Facebook, people have Twitter profiles and they treat it like a Facebook profile where they're just sharing things that they find, conversing, etc. And it's very fun and useful for that too. But most people don't quite get the purpose of Twitter when there are things out there like Facebook. First of all, Twitter's called a micro-blogging social media platform. And I'm not going to get too much into the basics of Twitter because you can find many articles online just by doing some searches and learning about the basics, learning how to set up an account. I'm just going to talk about the things I've learned recently that can really help take a Twitter account to become a very efficient tool, and how to really understand the best qualities of this tool, either as yourself if you're just wanting to get information, or if you're running a company or a personal brand that you're wanting to really expand and use to your benefit to get a wider audience. First things first is any usernames I mention can be found in the drop-down menu below. The first two I'm going to mention are myself. Is my main Twitter account is Longevity Tips, so that's at Longevity Tips. I've got it on the screen here, or you can go down to the link below. The next one is my sort of personal one, which I don't update anywhere near as often. I generally just update it from my Facebook page. That's also personal, and that's anything that really doesn't fall into the same category that the Longevity Tips one does, and that's Zach MK. That's at Zach MK. So a major benefit to having an account and also using this one thing about it is the search box on Twitter. You can go to search.twitter.com, or you can just go to twitter.com if you have an account, and you get the search box, which you then type anything into it, and it's basically a search engine for tweets. So you're going to get what people are talking about that gets those keywords in that order, and there's not going to be as much SEO, search engine optimization, that you would get with Google, for instance. So you're not going to get, because these are just people talking, they're not trying to make those 140 character posts get the top thing when someone searches it. It's just you're searching to find specific things. And if you're a company or brand, this is indispensable, because you can just simply search your company's name or a phrase of the name. So for example, for me, my website, the full URL is secretsoflongevityinhumans.com, and there's dashes in between those words. So that shows up if I were to search Secrets of Longevity. Anyone that's posted a link of one of my articles on my site, I can find who's done that in the last month or so, and however long the search results show for it. So I just did this the other day, and I found 2 people in the last 2 weeks who had posted articles of mine, so I just got on there and I messaged them a quick thank you. And because of that, they either might become a follower because they didn't know I was on Twitter. It establishes some good rapport, and they see that as a good thing. And if that happened to be an article that was recommending a product, or I have my own product that I'm selling, which can be consults or anything, that just increases the chances that they might become monetizable down the road because they have that good relationship that you've just begun to grow there. Now, if you think about it, I'm a very small company at this point. I'm one person, and if you were a much larger company, it doesn't even have to be that huge, but you have several thousand followers perhaps, and you have a product that's sold internationally or even nationally, you're going to have a lot more people that here and there are just going to be dropping the name, if your name's unique enough that it'll show up amongst other things. So if your company name's something that people would use in phrases that have nothing to do with your product, you might have trouble finding it. But if your company name was unique in that people would only use it for that thing, such as secrets of longevity, not many people say that in a sentence without referring to something that I've done, then you're going to get that coming up in the tweets, which is very handy, and that lets you know who you can start to engage, if they're not already someone that's following you on Twitter. The other side to that is if someone's had a bad experience with your product or with you as a person or anything you're doing, is you can have a chance to apologize to them or to ask them how you can make that up to them or just engage them in some way, but coming from a very, friendly place. You can actually shift their perception of you and save one customer, which could be lead down the road to hundreds, considering the power of word of mouth. The next thing you do with search.twitter.com or the search box on Twitter is to look for people posting about content you're interested in. It could be directly related to your niche, or it could be like a sub-niche, or just something in the general broader scope that still involves your niche. Like for me, I might be searching something about health in general that in some ways can be tied to longevity, but you see someone talking about something that is something you could respond to, and you can start up a conversation. You could follow them and start up a conversation, or retweet something they've done somewhere else in their profile, and you're starting to, again, develop that relationship, and you might get a follower out of it, and that's just a way to start building this rapport with people. And the key thing about this is that a lot of people on Twitter don't get is that Twitter, just like any other social media platform, is not marketing, it's social marketing. So it's not just a place for you to put up a billboard and constantly have this flashing sign like, go to my site, here's my latest blog post, as a lot of people do. But you have to think of it like a cocktail party. You're interacting with people, and you also have to have that mindset of being professional, because you don't want to just develop a bad reputation for yourself. So don't tweet as much as you would on a day that you're feeling terrible, for instance, unless you do want to share those hardships with people. It depends on your unique place and what you're trying to convey as an individual and as a company. There's always a little bit of space for a bit of personal stuff, but you just have to sort of have the judgment as to how far in depth you're going to get with that. For instance, for me, if I saw someone talking about they wish they could live to 100, this is kind of an example of something I interacted with someone recently on, not exact details, but they were referencing wanting to live a long time, but was thinking that was hopeless, and I just kind of went in there and messaged them something roughly about all the scientists today thinking we're going to live to ridiculous ages, like people who are 60 today might be the first people to become 1,000. And I then in the next tweet after she responded gave her a link to something that wasn't mine. And so that developed a rapport there, which is like, oh, this person's just reaching out and giving me some tips about something that I was sort of inquiring to the world about. And I could have said, go to this specific video of mine, but that might look a little cheesy. And that's that sort of buy mentality. Even if it's just content and you're not forced to buy anything, or not trying to force them to buy something, it's still, if you think of it as like a cocktail party, you're not just going to come up to someone and shove your business card in their face. You start talking to them, and if they like what you're saying, you get on the topic of your career. They're going to ask for your business card, perhaps. On Twitter, your business card is your profile. You have your website there, you have information about yourself, and if someone follows you, they're going to see the content you're posting, and they're going to come to your site eventually. Another great thing to use Twitter for is looking at movie reviews, like just for personal stuff that's not even related to your business or what you would normally use Twitter for. But you just search, if you're wanting to watch, can't decide between movies that night, just go on Twitter and search for what people are saying about it. It's a lot more unofficial than searching for reviews on Google or trying to find it on a professional site that's all formal. It's just people completely being open and sharing their thoughts without much censorship, you could say. So that's very useful. You know, product review, movie review, whatever it is you want to look for, you can find it on Twitter. You can also use the more advanced search options, which I'm not going to go into detail on how to use, but there's a great article below. It's one of the links below in the drop-down menu, and you can do search. For example, one way of doing an advanced search option is searching within a specific area of where you are, and that's very handy for local business, because if you were, for example, a pizza place, not going to be the thing that I'd be promoting, of course, but if you were a pizza joint that was looking for people asking about something about pizza, and you were able to determine the distance from you that you want to search within, then you can start looking for people that are talking about pizza in that area, and that would be the people that would apply to your business, and you could engage in a conversation in that way. So as a local business that deals with things locally, that's very handy, no matter what size you are, whether you're one person running a store downtown somewhere, a city, or if you're a big company but you're selling a hard product that you don't really sell online or you can't sell online. It's very handy for that. So that's also very handy for anyone in the holistic arts or design or anything that's very much about working one-on-one with someone that you have clients for. So you want to use it for that option specifically. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is optimizing your profile for it to work the most efficiently. One thing you can do is if your username is several words together. So for example, mine's longevity tips. The way it's searched online is twitter.com/longevity-tips, all lowercase, but the way it appears on your profile, just for ease of reading and to really make it clear to people what those two words are, in the settings you can change it to the first L being, any of the words being capitalized. So it's good to capitalize the first letters of each word, so it really makes it clear just when it's appearing on your profile there, and also when it appears in the news feed of Twitter posts on people's main feeds for your followers. They're going to see your name, and it's going to be a little bit quicker to understand what it says there. That's important to do, I think. You can have a 160 character blurb about anything really that appears below your username and your Twitter name. And this is a good place because you can make hyperlinks that go to different things. So you're going to have a place for any URL below that, so don't put your main website there. I've seen some people have their main website and then it's also in their little blurb, and you just got two links in a row. It doesn't really do anything because people are just going to use one or the other. So you could be putting other stuff in there, whether it's just a longer blurb about yourself and what you do or your company, or it can be used to link to some other things. So for example, if you go to my Twitter account, Longevity Tips, you're going to see a few things in there. One is at the end, it also says, also see @ZachMK, and that's just to get people who are following me there, who go to my profile page, they'll also go to the other one, and I'll probably get some followers following back and forth between them. The other thing you see in there is a hashtag longevity chat, and gives a brief description of what that is. And I'll get into chats later, but they can also click that and they can see, get information on that, and it does like an automatic search for that hashtag. And that's very useful if you are engaging in anything like that, or you have multiple accounts to put those in there, or you can just put another website in there, whether it's your Facebook fan page, or an affiliate link, or a YouTube page. You could put that link in there, in addition to your main website, or however you want to organize that. Two other quick things is your background. You want to have your background be not one of the set backgrounds that they have. You want to make it customizable. So, I mean, if you've just signed up, just set it to something that is remotely good looking for your specific niche or profile. But as soon as you can, you want to get it to a more professional looking profile, and you can take a picture of your logo or anything and set it to a tile so that it just appears in the background like that. That looks great in my opinion. That's what mine's set to. Or you can get professionally done pictures that you customize and will set up as one big picture that fits the Twitter profile perfectly, and you get the image that fits on either side of the sort of Twitter tools, I guess you could call them, and boxes. So you usually have to get that professionally done, or you can figure it out yourself if you're good with that sort of thing. Then of course with your avatar pic, profile pic, with every tweet you put out, people are going to see that and associate that with you. So you want to either be your company's logo or a picture of yourself that's fairly close up and clear so that because it's going to be a very small picture when it's appearing on the screen, and they can associate that with you. And you know, mine is actually a picture from further away, but it's a very dynamic and interesting picture, and it reflects what my content's about, of course. So you're basically going to be using one of three main strategies that people use with their Twitter account, no matter what reason you're using a Twitter account for. The first one is going to be if you're looking to sort of be a celebrity slash public icon, and you're using Twitter as a platform to sort of be on a soapbox speaking to the masses. You're going to be having a lot more followers than you are following other people, and that's fine if you're able to do that, but if you're not getting that large of a following, that might not be the best approach, because depends on what your intent is. If you're just wanting to look cool, having a massive amount of followers in terms of having a bigger ratio to the amount you're following, then yeah, do that, I guess. But if it's like 10 people you're following and 130 people that are following you, it just doesn't work as well as having 700 and something and you're following 500 and something, or even 700 and 700, or 16,000 and you're following 16,000. You're going to have a much bigger impact doing that, but you don't have that look of being someone that is following less than who are following them. If you're the Dalai Lama, you can get away with following no people and having millions of people following you, and that's fine. That's what people that have those verified accounts have the ability to do. And you might get there just by building your reputation. You might, over time, you can always delete people you're following, and that could be something to do if you want to get that. So there's what's called follow for follow. If someone follows you, you automatically follow them back. You don't have to do it automatically. I personally use Twitter for, like I said, data mining, so I'm selective about who I follow, but I'm also very liberal in terms of how many people I follow. If they fall in the niches that I follow, I generally do follow them back if someone's followed me. So you can always go follow me and I might follow you back, who knows. And you can also use lists to categorize the people you're following, because you're going to reach a point at some point where your main feed is so full of people posting constantly that there might be individuals that you'd like to follow, but you don't get to see that often because they might only post once or twice a day, or they might post a couple times a week, and it just gets drowned out by all the stuff being posted. So you start creating lists by category or by how much you like certain people to read their posts and tweets, and that way you can go to look at those lists on their own without all the sort of commotion of the larger volume of people that are on your main feed. Now I use all of those things. I go through the main feed, I go through the lists that I've created, and that allows me to look at the different topics that I want to look at and then reply to people, retweet things, get conversations going, etc. The idea of follow for follow is good because a lot of people are wanting an audience, and people are more likely to listen to you if you're following them. And that's just the way things are, but you also have to keep in mind that it's quality over quantity. So you're not just wanting to jack that number up just for the sake of it, because if people are following you, but they're just someone who's posting, blog post after blog post that's never really engaging in conversation, they're not going to be looking at your stuff when they come on Twitter. They're just coming on Twitter to post their stuff where it does it automatically. So those people aren't worth following, in my opinion, because they're not engaging in the community social aspect of Twitter. So yeah, keep that in mind. You also have people who have many thousands of people who are followers of them, and then they're following a very similar number. And usually when it's in the very high thousands, they've had some sort of automatic bot adding people. So it's a program that they've programmed on their own, or that is an application that they've subscribed to or are buying on an ongoing basis, like a monthly thing or yearly price, or maybe it's a one-time thing. It's a software program that automatically adds and then drops people who aren't following them back. So it adds people and then drops them, or people that add them, it will follow them back, and it just keeps those numbers very stable. And there's a bunch of them out there. I'm not going to get into them. I personally don't like to do that because I'm data mining with Twitter as well. But it can be useful if that's what you're wanting to get. And again, even with something like that, you can have those lists to really keep on top of the people you really truly want to be looking at in terms of what they're posting. Basically, the third type of person who's using Twitter is not going to be... Basically, the third type of person who's going to be using Twitter is just parking their name there just for the sake of down the road maybe they'll use it one day. It could be their business name, it could be their own name. In fact, I highly recommend anyone just create a Twitter account, get your name in some form reserved there. Maybe you'll never touch it ever, but it's there, and if you ever need it, it's there and someone else hasn't snatched it up. So that's actually why I originally got the ZachMK account, but I'm over time just using it, but I use it very minimally in that sense. So that type of person might just want to set up an automatic post that comes from their Facebook profile, if their Facebook profile for their company or their personal brand is going to be developing. You can have it so that every Facebook post automatically goes to Twitter. It's a very minimalist way of doing things, and that's fine in the sense that you're going to be gaining a bit of a reputation on Twitter, and you're going to get some traffic from your Twitter posts to your Facebook page, which is good. So it's worth it in that sense, but it's not optimizing the use of Twitter, in my opinion, but that could be a very minimal way of doing it. And anyone that wants to know how to do that, just go to twitter.facebook.com. You can set up that application on your Facebook page, not Facebook profile, but a page like a business page you created, or any personal page that's separate from your profile, and it'll automatically post those to Twitter. So that's actually facebook.com/Twitter to set up that app. I made a mistake there before in what I said, so check out the links below if you want to set up that application. I've got a link there for that, amongst all the links for the different apps that I talk about, which is coming up shortly. We'll get back to the main topic of this video in just one moment. If you're enjoying this content, perhaps you're a regular subscriber, perhaps you've found me in a YouTube search relating to the information I put out, I'd ask you to consider making some sort of financial contribution if you want to see me continually put out this well-researched, in-depth videos. Ways of doing that are in the drop-down menu below this video. You have to come to the actual YouTube video page if you're on a third-party site, and you can find links to different things I'd recommend you do. One of which could be purchasing through an affiliate of mine, companies I recommend that have great products, high quality, companies that I personally purchase from. Another way is to make a direct donation to me through PayPal. Another way, of course, is also to set up phone consultations, and you can find that at my main site, at the link below. So with that, I can definitely appreciate anything you're able to contribute to me, even if it's just your open heart and kind words. So with that, we'll get right back to the content, and thank you. So I briefly mentioned lists in the sense that I use them for data mining and following groups of people and organizing the people I follow. And that's one way of using lists, but you can also use lists to look for other people's followers in terms of who they're following. So you might have someone you respect in some sort of niche, and they're using lists, and you go through their lists to find people that you want to follow and might follow you back because they're related in some way. So it's useful in that sense. And then you can actually follow that list itself. If you want to follow any of my lists or look through them, you can go to twitter.com/longevitytips/lists. And you can find that in the links below as well. Basically, you also want to look at your own profile and look at the lists from time to time, see who's listing you, what they're listing you under, and just get a feel for how other people are using the lists option. So there's a lot of applications that can come with Twitter that you can find over time. I'm just going to talk about the ones I use that I find the most useful. This is even more than I actually use, but these are ones I'm aware of that are useful, that I know a lot of people are using, and are very popular. And always keep on the lookout for applications that basically connect to your Twitter account and help you do different things. There's programs you can buy that are, in my opinion, overpriced, that do what a lot of these applications can do, but all in one package. And that's useful if you want the simplicity of one thing, but it's really easy just to use a bunch of free applications. Just keep a list of them in some safe place, or just get used to using them, and it's really not that difficult. It's just that mental idea of, oh, there's like 10 things I'm using here, it's all over the place. It's really not. It's very easy to do them, and you'll see just by my brief explanation of them. So the number one thing you might want to look into getting, and this is most useful if you have multiple accounts that you're managing. This is TweetDeck, and you can get that at the link below for their site. You basically download it, you can set it up on your desktop, in your actual browser, or on your mobile phone. On your mobile phone it might get pretty irritating with it constantly beeping and stuff, but I'm sure you can adjust the settings in that way. But what it allows you to do is sort of look at multiple accounts at once and set things up. You have to download it to know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's a way of managing several accounts without having to constantly log in from one account to the other in the main Twitter page. And that's very useful, actually, if you're running a business from home, or perhaps you run several Twitter accounts for people, you're a social media marketer, or for whatever reason you have multiple accounts. You can do all that from your computer very easily. Another really popular one is TwitPic. I don't personally use this, at least this time. I only just started looking at it because you see people posting with it. It's a way of posting pictures on Twitter, and when people click on the post you've made, instead of having to open another window in their browser, it actually opens it up in the same window and shows the picture there. So it's kind of nice for people using Twitter. If you want them to look at a picture, if you post it actually directly on TwitPic, it's going to appear there. There's other, picture platforms that also allow it to show up on the Twitter thing if they're using Twitter web. So I think another one is the YFrog. But yeah, just look into that if you want to use Twitter as a way of posting pictures. If you're a photographer, if you're putting up pictures of products and things, that's very useful to use. Clout is a very popular application as well. It's very highly recommended to use. It's sort of the biggest application for looking at the statistics and analyzing how your account's doing. It also works for other accounts, not just your Twitter account. You can set it with Google+, with Facebook pages and other things like that. And you can look at, and even YouTube and several social media networks it hooks up to. And that's a way of looking at your impact and the way things are converting, whether people are clicking on your links, etc. And that's very useful for any marketer or anyone just curious at looking at that. One of the newest applications I've started using, which has become indispensable, and it's very useful if you're doing this follow-for-follow strategy of adding people just for the sake of trying to get them to follow you. You want to have a way of managing that so that you know who isn't following you back. So this is Manage Flitter, and again, I've got all the links below for these applications, and I've got them all actually going to most of them going to the Twitter page for them. And if you want to set it up, I think you have to go to their site, but the Twitter page will just have you there and you can read about it and see what they're posting about. But yeah, Manage Flitter will allow you to look at who's not following you back, who you're following, and you can go through and you can organize it chronologically or by number of followers they have or different things. You can also pull up who's posting the least, and you can sort of eliminate dead followers in that sense, people who just you once followed, and whether they're following you not or back, they might just not be posting anymore, and it's just not worth you having them as someone you're following if they're not going to be seeing your content. It's just a way of sort of shedding that excess people who you're following if that's something you wish to do. There's also a step up, a pro level of that application which costs money, which might be useful for you. You can always look on the site to look at what extra perks they give you for that. The next app I use is Timely app, and this is a way of sort of compiling a bunch of posts you want to make and then having them be posted throughout the day. It could be the next day or days down the road. You might build up a huge amount of tweets. This is very useful if you don't want to constantly be attending to Twitter. You could do just basically 30 minutes to an hour of work on Twitter in the morning or at any time of the day. And if you build up enough tweets to last you to the next time you're going to be on the computer, that's useful because it gives you a presence on Twitter, and you're going to set it up to post 1 tweet a day, 3 tweets a day, 5 tweets a day, or 9 tweets a day, I believe. Those are the intervals. And that allows you to basically buffer it so that it posts it in a staggered amount throughout the day. And that way you're going to have this constant presence again, like I'm saying. Because if the people who are following you have a lot of people they're following, and you only post, say, 2 or 3 things at one point in the day, they're less likely to actually see those because it'll have been bumped down by other people posting. So I don't use that every day, but when I do use it, I'm combining that with some live Twitter work with the timely buffered tweeting. The other thing to use is Buffer app. I don't use this one as much, but I've used it at times. And again, you can find those links below. Basically the same concept. You can also look for a timed one. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. I couldn't find it in my list of applications, but there's other applications that let you set the exact time that you have a post go out. So that's useful if you need that to happen. So you can set the exact date and time. So it could be a post you want to have happen a week from now, at a specific time saying, I'm going out to this movie, and you just know you're not going to get around to actually tweeting that right before going to that movie, or you're going to a concert, or whatever it is you want to announce to the world. Another very useful thing to have is selective tweets. It's an application that hooks your main Facebook profile with Twitter, but as opposed to posting from Facebook to Twitter, using the hashtag FB for Facebook on any of your tweets that you post manually, or even from one of these timed release tweet applications, it's going to appear and then automatically post on your Facebook profile as well. So it's not your Facebook page, but your main Facebook profile. And that's very useful if you're just posting some random quote or something and you really like it, then it's also going to appear there, and it just saves you the fairly minimal time, but these little time-saving things all add up, and they're very useful to put into practice, just so that you can optimize your workflow. There's 3 more applications I'm going to talk about, which are sort of like the yellow pages of Twitter. And I'm not sure which is the most popular one. The first one I ever used was WeFollow, and this is a way of getting yourself associated with sort of a directory. And this is useful just to get yourself on there. I personally don't use the directory for anything else because I can search for things on Twitter much easier, but people do use these directories, so you want to get yourself on there and get associated with a couple keywords that you're allowed to associate yourself with. They can vary in differing amounts depending on which directory we're talking about here. I think WeFollow is like 6 keywords you attach to your name. And so, for example, if you were going to go on WeFollow.com and search longevity, I'd appear somewhere on there because there's not a ton of people that are under that keyword, but I'm in there and I'm moving up the ladder, so to speak, until you perhaps, if you really conquer your niche, you're going to get to the top of that list of where you want to get to. And then 2 more are Twillow, Twellow, and also Listorious, and you can find all 3 of those sort of directory applications in the links below. And I highly recommend joining those up, and then you can just forget about them. You don't have to continually use those, but they're associated with your account and you approve them connecting to your Twitter account. Next thing I want to briefly talk about is hashtags. This thing is something that is one of the newer aspects of Twitter in a way. When I first joined Twitter, people weren't really using them, or they weren't using them, but this has developed and is a part of Twitter that's really actually very useful, that I've now discovered sort of late in the game. And if you've ever been on Twitter, you see there's trending topics on the side, and that's one thing that hashtags are good for, is if you ever get a hashtag that you've started in the trending topics, that can be very good for you if other people are retweeting it. That usually only happens to big companies and people that just happen to be right in some sort of the right place at the right time and say something and attach that hashtag, and it just blows up. But generally those are very pop culture things that you're not going to be able to comment on unless you're interested in that. Once in a while I'll comment on something like that, and what happens is people who are following those trends will see all those posts and you'll appear there for a bit, but they're happening so quickly because people all around the world are using those hashtags, so it'll get bumped down pretty quick. But if you say something particularly witty or important that's connected with that, you might get a couple followers out of it. So once in a while I do that, and I've gotten followers that way. Whether they stay or not is something I haven't looked into, but you know, that's something, you've always seen those there, so if you see something that catches your eye on any topic, just post about it just for the fun of it. But one way to use these hashtags that's very useful is sort of the smaller trending things that you can get going, and you'll see other people posting things that have that hashtag on the end or somewhere in their post, and it's a hyperlink, so you can click it and it'll take you almost as an automatic search for that hashtag, and it'll show you who's all using that. And certain ones are very popular. They might not be a trending topic, but they could still be huge. People posting something with that hashtag every few minutes, or even several times a minute, or a couple times a day. So depending on the frequency of how many people are using that, people are also looking at that and searching that. So if you use that hashtag, it kind of lumps your tweet in with that category. So one in particular I use on occasion, haven't in a while actually, but is started by Underground Wellness, and that's JERF, so hashtag JERF, and that's JERF, and it stands for Just Eat Real Food. So I might post something like what I'm making for dinner, and it might be a paleo meal or a primal meal, and I think people would be interested in knowing what I'm doing there, so what the ingredients are. So I post the ingredients up, and I add jerk to the end, and I might get a couple people commenting on it because they've been following that hashtag and they check in on it occasionally. So with the hashtag, you can't have spaces in there, so if you're going to post anything and try and make it a hashtag, you got to just sort of clump all the words together. You could always capitalize words at the start to delineate them, but it doesn't matter. It'll be the same hashtag whether it's capitalized or not. Or you can put an underscore, or you can put a number in there to do different types of hashtags. One thing people are doing with the hashtags is starting chats, like weekly or bi-weekly chats. So hashtag some word, chat or discussion or anything they want to put on there, or it might not even have that in it. It's just associated with a chat that happens at a specific time every week or every bi-week or once a month or more frequently, who knows. Or basically hashtags can also contribute to an ongoing sort of chat when people want to get involved with it, which sort of the past example I was giving. You can think of it like that. It's like a way of categorizing your tweet to be part of an ongoing discussion on a certain topic. And if you look out there, you're going to start to see unique hashtags that you can use, and sort of keep these in a file on your computer. Just open a Word document or a note and just sort of start to categorize and collect hashtags that you want to use that are useful for your personal brand or company, or just that you use for fun for your own social media work. And it's another part of Twitter that makes it unique. So these Twitter chats are actually, like I said, these scheduled things that go on. You can find a link below for a schedule of many different chats, and if you're a specific business or niche, you can find out what ones you want to look at. There's not many in health. I've looked through the whole list of them. There's a couple of them, but no really good ones, so I decided to start one on longevity, which is going to happen on the full moon and the new moon every month starting in January. So the first one's going to be full moon on January 9th, and this is the hashtag longevity chat. And it's going to be the first one. I'm curious to see how it's going to go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's been chats that come up and then fade away. There was once a paleo chat, but no one's done that in a while. And it should be interesting to see where it goes. But it's a way of sort of having a conversation going that people are sort of tweeting pretty rapidly on. And from my experience of engaging in some of these chats, you get a lot of followers fast, you get a lot of good discussions going, you might learn something. It's a good way of branding yourself and promoting yourself on Twitter and getting a bigger audience and sort of networking in a way as well. So come out and check that out if you're interested. Most chats are scheduled like on a set day at a set time. Mine are going to be 9 p.m. Eastern Time. They're not going to be a set day because, you know, the moon phase shifts a bit. It's not exactly 14 days between each one. So I'll be encouraging people to check in with their moon calendar, the lunar calendar, to look what days it can fall on. But again, I'll be posting that on Twitter. If you follow me there, you'll sort of see me getting into that from time to time. So that concludes sort of the main things I want to cover just about the features on Twitter. Hopefully that has inspired you to look into the possibility of using Twitter in a different way, or even if you've never used Twitter before, to sign up for an account and join the community. And if you want to start using Twitter for business or as a way of promoting yourself and branding yourself, but you don't want to be totally consumed by it, you do not have to be on Twitter, 5 hours a day. You could at first, when you're first starting out, or you might go through a period where you do that at certain times. But if you want to really be organized and regimented about it, you can set a specific time every day you do this. It could be for 50 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. Personally I think between 30 minutes to an hour a day on this is fantastic. And you really can do it all at once. You don't have to constantly be coming back to it. And this is just going to be a breakdown of what I'm going to list here is how you could utilize that time. And it's going to vary, obviously. The bigger you get, the more time it's going to take, so the less you might want to do from this list. So the first thing I do when I go on Twitter is you look at your app. I look at my app replies and I reply to any of them that need to be replied to, or thank people for retweets and follows as well. So if a bunch of new people start following me, I might send them a thank you. I don't thank every single person, but particularly the ones when I see someone that I've been following for a while start to follow me, I usually thank them just because it means they've usually found me in some way and like what I'm posting. And once in a while I'll find someone that's pretty well known is following me, And obviously I'm sort of grateful for that and honored by that, and I usually send that out. And I didn't get into it, but retweets, if you want to know, there's a button on most posts that you just click retweet, and that takes their post and posts it on your profile with their picture, or you can just copy and paste their tweet, put RT in capitals, and then at their username, and then their post, and that's the most appropriate thing to do. I like retweeting other people's tweets because it gives them exposure, and I generally expect that people will return the favor at some point, or perhaps it gets them to notice you and they might start following you, and that's very useful to do. So the next thing you want to do is scan through your main feed or your lists by subjects if you want to focus on and look for posts you want to reply to or to retweet. So this is what I was talking about, data mining. You might find articles you want to click on and read about. It might inspire you to retweet them. So this is going through those niches that are related to you, that you've created, that gives you the leverage to start promoting other people and responding and getting conversations going. And this is how you build rapport, how you build your reputation, and how you get people to follow you back as well. And once I've done that, I usually make some real-time tweets. I might be doing that in between the stuff. Don't want to do tons of retweets all at once. I want to break those up because it looks a little weird if your profile is just mostly retweets. And you also want to vary who you retweet. You don't want to look like you're just obsessed with this few accounts. And then also setting up some delayed tweets with either Timely app or Buffer app or the other applications out there that post tweets on a delayed time frame. So this is very useful if you've got your half an hour to an hour of time you're putting into Twitter. Spend about 15 minutes doing those things I just listed. You might put some real-time tweets in there. You might converse with some people, and then you might spend the rest of that time building up. With Timely, what I like about it is you can build up this store of tweets. You can set it to maybe 5 tweets a day, so it posts them 5 times throughout the day, evenly spaced. It doesn't generally post them at night, so it tries to keep within the peak hours of Twitter usage, which is handy as well. And if you build up, say, 20 tweets, which might take a couple days, but if you're building them up faster than it's tweeting them out, then you also don't have to be spending that much time on it every day. And you might be inspired at some point during the day to add to that, and you can always keep adding to that, or you let it run out, and you focus on other ways of using it too. I don't always use it all the time, but I often do use that. But one of the major things with Twitter is that it's one of the only social networks besides a Facebook page. I mean, the Facebook profile is pretty limited in that 5,000 person limit, and also Facebook, in my opinion, is getting more and more not as user-friendly, and people aren't enjoying it as much as they used to. So I think Twitter's sort of a new frontier in that regard. It'll never replace Facebook. I guess Google Plus in a way is sort of better in that sense, but Twitter is its own unique thing, and by using it on your phone, you can tweet throughout the day without having to be at your computer. Again, the tweet is the same number as a text, so if you text a lot, that's useful in terms of just adding that into your habit of texting. Never text and drive, of course, but that's a way of having that ongoing conversation with people. And I've met some people who've got a really dedicated following because they have an iPhone or BlackBerry or Android, and they're on there doing Twitter throughout the day, whatever they're doing out in the world, and that constant contact really gives them a huge presence online. And Twitter might be their main thing, and it really leverages a lot of sales on their site, selling their books, and seeing that has been an inspiration for me. And while I don't actually use the mobile Twitter application, that might be the right thing for you to use if you want to have that constant contact. But you also might want to keep it in that time frame of small chunk of time per day, and that's good as well. E3 Live right now has a 20% discount sale happening, and the coupon code for that, by the way, if you want to support me, you can check out the affiliate link below to get to the E3 Live website. And then if you enter the code HOLIDAY2011 in the checkout, you can save that 20%. And yeah, enjoy E3 Live. It's a great product. And with that, let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know if you're on Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter and send me a message if you want me to follow you back. And also like and favorite the video and subscribe if you haven't done that before. And I will talk to you later. Take care and embrace life without limits.